And there's this unspoken thing the media has where we do not assume that Republicans would do the right thing. And because of that, we sort of give them tacit approval to not do the right thing. Like we just sort of let it go when Republicans do like clearly corrupt shit. And then when a Democrat does it, there are calls for the Democrat to resign. There's this whole media thing. It's like there's only one party that's actually expected to be a political party. Been a banner week for debates, hasn't it? Joe Biden got up there and had possibly one of the worst debate performances I've ever seen in American politics. Let's be frank. I'm going to warm up and talk about that a little bit because it's a thing. And people are talking about it weird. The debate, not good. Biden was unenergetic. He was low energy. He seemed out of it half the time. It was yes. By contrast, Tyler's was one of the most vicious curb stomps I've seen in my life. But Biden's debate performance was exceptionally poor. And this was obviously an unusual debate, right? It happened in July, well before the conventions, because we've had an unusual presidential season. And a lot of people are saying that Joe Biden should step out of the race. I don't know if that's possible. This has been a problem I've been kind of like privately thinking for myself since like 2012, that Obama didn't do enough to build a backbench for the party for the national elections. It was horrible. It's just been a long running issue. Like Joe Biden is not anyone's idea of a good contender in 2020. He's just not Trump. He's just not Trump. And that's kind of what helped him win. It was COVID and Trump was there and Trump was bad. Yeah, Obama disbanded his entire volunteer work. He did a very bad job party building, to be perfectly frank. And this has kind of left the Democrats in a lurch. Hillary Clinton has obviously a long-standing situation where she's well known and situated in the party. She was a senator, she was first lady, etc. And she's in New York, and it's a powerful Democratic state. And like it made her a fairly natural choice. Like a lot of this Bernie Sanders or bust crap was bullshit all along. He was never going to get the nomination, and he got the nomination, he would have lost in at least 49, possibly 50 states. You go lay down. So you're in a situation where there's not a whole lot of like, there are some obvious choices, but there's not a whole lot of like good choices. Gavin Newsom's been floated, Pete Buttigieg, and like none of these guys are going to beat Trump. You cannot win this election the second time after you've had 4 years of Biden and just be like, well, Trump is bad, we got to beat Trump. I mean, that's true. All of that is true, but it's not going to be good enough. Because the fact that Donald Trump exists and continues to exist as a legitimate political force kind of speaks to the fact that people aren't buying the Donald Trump is genuinely an authoritarian argument. Or if they do, they don't care. Because there is our good friend Josiah at Pondering Politics loves to make this point that there is a double standard in the media for Democrats and Republicans, where Democrats will not be held or will be held accountable for what they say and do, and Republicans will not. And we've seen a lot of stuff about how Biden should drop out, and I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, I'll be very surprised. But like we don't see anything about Trump dropping out. And there's this unspoken thing the media has where we do not assume that Republicans would do the right thing. And because of that, we sort of give them tacit approval to not do the right thing. Like we just sort of let it go when Republicans do like clearly corrupt shit. And then when a Democrat does it, there are calls for the Democrat to resign. There's this whole media thing. It's like there's only one party that's actually expected to be a political party. Well, we'll get to that, Paul. That Biden dropping out is a problem. There is no one to replace him in reality. Kamala's not well equipped. She hasn't been doing the media pushback. They haven't been dealing with the media properly. They haven't, and it shows. Biden's Biden's approval numbers are sitting at an aggregate at 538 of like 37%. Generally speaking, at this point in a election cycle, you want to be at 40-45% approval. The theory is that during the major push between the election, so from the position of the convention, which is early August, on till November, early November election, you will rise up in approval because you'll be doing this big, basically media blitz. But you have to be at the right spot to get there, right? And the numbers for Biden aren't good. His approval rating is low. He is statistically tied with Trump, basically, in an overall for the election. It's not great. It's not time. It's not. I don't want to say it's not time to panic. You should be concerned if you are a Republican, or if you are a Democrat. Excuse me. Your biggest risk of a convention is a repeat of 1968, which the far left has already been threatening since it is in Chicago again. Yeah, I thought that. Like, I don't know why we'd hold a convention in Chicago in the first place. Chicago is going to vote Democratic, irregardless of what you do, if you hold a convention there or not. Chicago is reliably Democratic. It will remain reliably Democratic until the sun goes out. I would know. I've lived there a long time. We're also dealing with two candidates of advanced age, and campaigns are very stressful. Possibly neither makes it to November. It's Chicago plus a couple other spots, Palm Dad. It's mostly suburbs around Chicago, but it is Chicago plus a lot of others. You could not, with the city of Cook County alone, do it. There is enough weight down south in the state to change that. That's kind of where the meme of independent Chicago comes from, or rather, independent Illinois, I guess, is a more accurate way of putting it. The tricky part of this here is the situation for Biden isn't good, but there's nothing better available. You should be concerned if you want Biden to win, if you want Democrats to win, or more aptly for most of my audience, if you don't want Trump to win. You should be concerned. However, it's not time to panic yet. 2 weeks after the convention, if we're still having this happen, panic, yes. That's the time to panic. Yeah, well, you're kind of hitting vodka there on a truth of American electoral politics, right? The way we vote kind of makes it so that population centers are the deciding factor in most cases. Big population centers, and you have the vast majority of the country lives in either an urban or suburban environment, 80%. And you have a lot of places out there, a lot of places of mostly empty land where very few people live. Like, for example, I'm out here in Colorado now. Colorado's actually a fairly populous state, but the states around Colorado are not. Bad thing is Americans could have Americans sitting on their palm of generations if they're active. They wouldn't have to implement socialism. No, they can run the course. They can stay the course in a lot of policies if they were a little bit more aggressive. Well, even media aggressive, I think, is the thing. Well, no, it's not even an endless sea of deep red. It's like spotty red. Like I've talked about this with What a Faultist in the past. He shows that map of counties, right? Or I think it's counties. It's not really accurately labeled. That are red and blue, and he pretends like this is a massive like wave that red that could sweep away the blue. It's not. It's not a question of whether or not you can sweep with the blue. It's a question of who lives there. Population, like the population centers, the suburbs, the urban centers, especially the urban centers. America doesn't have a lot of really big cities. Speaking on a world stage, like Mexico City is 20 million people. New York, I think, is 6 or 8. So you have a lot of spaces that you have a lot of people concentrated that make up the vast majority of those Democratic votes and can move those states in the Electoral College in that direction. it might not be enough. I don't want to put down a particular number yet. Estelle, aren't you Canadian? Get out of here with that. Come on. Not going to vote for Biden. We appreciate you not voting for Biden, as that would be illegal. Try that President Sunday nonsense with me. I talk to you guys. I know things. I remember things. So yeah, they need to make some very swift and sure changes right now. Whether or not that involves Biden still running is largely going to be up to the party. Biden mostly. He's won the primaries. There's no real legitimate competition. It's largely up to Biden. He should not have ran. He should have anointed someone to run. And I think that's the problem. I wasn't excited about Biden because it was Biden. I was excited about Biden in 2020 because it wasn't Trump. And like Donald Trump, and here's the kicker on all of this. Donald Trump winning in 2016 should have been kind of obvious to us. We allowed ourselves to think that it wasn't going to happen because we didn't want it to happen. It was inconceivable that we would vote for Donald Trump. But if you kind of look at history and what happens after a long embattled 8 years for a particular party's administration, the other administration typically wins. So 2016 should have been expected. I'm looking at the numbers now. I check them maybe once or twice a week. And if you look at the numbers and you take Biden's approval rating as it's like the only real indicator you have right now. It's too far out for anything else to be meaningful, I think. You look at Biden's approval rating and then you take it and you compare it to other approval ratings at this time. He is in that category of people who lost re-election. It's just not good. And his debate performance was just, his debate performance didn't help. And maybe debates don't help. That's, a very contested thing that people talk about. Debates mostly just shape narrative is what the argument is. Whether or not that's true, the fact is that this debate had to help Biden. Biden needed this to go well because it was unusual, it was odd, and it was his to lose, and he lost it. So whether or not the debate had an impact, people are like, oh, the thing is still statistically tied. The debate didn't have an impact. And that's the problem. The debate didn't have an impact. It did not help. You're in trouble. You need to do something that changes the dynamic, or you might lose this election. So debates are tricky to begin with, and they're high intensity, high pressure, obviously.